Yo, what's up everybody? Welcome to the stream. I'm going to quickly share that I'm live with the Discord, and then you and I are going to be unpacking this latest preset bank that I've been working on that I think that is going to be pretty inspiring. I'll say that much. So let me share this real quick and then I'll get my thoughts together, and then we're going to dive into the presets. And I've also got a demo track. I say it's a demo track. It's actually a track that I'm working on that I really like, but I do want to give you some insight into how I incorporate this within my own production. So that way it's not just like, oh, I make this stuff and then I let it go. Like, this is what I actually do on a day-to-day basis. So if you all know and have been keeping up with what I've been doing as of late, I don't make the Eternum series anymore. And the Eternum series is kind of like my baby, because what I did was I created an ecosystem to where you can mix and match different presets to make up your own. And so there's a ton of customization with that. And let me show you what that is really quick. So with Eternum 1 through 6, yo, Greedo, what's up? You can pretty much take something like this that I've provided, which is like the template. And with this template, you can choose between one of the wavetables that I've made. It'll make sense in a second, but you can choose between one of the wavetables I made. You can make your own wavetables, whatever. And you start here. And then you're like, okay, cool, we've got a wavetable. You can, choose an FM, whatever. Then when you get into this, depending on what series you have, you can use a bunch of different stuff like, any of these, of all of these filter like racks that I've made to mix and match in between all of these things that are mapped to these macros. And then likewise, if you look here, there's a generator knob that lets you do the same thing, but there are these random generator things that allow you to basically create this amalgamation of different types of sound possibilities. So if I were to kind of just mix and match between this, give me 1 second. I think that I'm fading this in, and that's why the volume is so low. There we go. So we start here, and we turn this on. We make this into a Reese. We turn on the filtering. Then we turn on the generator knob. And now we're getting into all different kinds of glitching and whatnot. Now, behind all of this, I've provided all these patches that you can use, and basically that's, how this works, is that I can mix and match in between all these and be like, all right, let's toss this in. And essentially, I know that people use the term infinite possibilities quite a bit, but to me, this gives you that. And I've provided such an easy way for people to have access to that, to where they're not just having to use my presets. Not only that, but it's completely random, so you're getting all different kinds of stuff. So I don't think that I can take Eternum for what it is any further. And so with these packs, I've stepped out of the Eternum series, and I've fast forward gone into something new, which doesn't have quite as much flexibility. Actually, no, that's not true. It doesn't have quite as much customization, but it does have more variety of sounds. Because what this is something that takes that idea of the Eternum series and transforms it into something that can be not only just a neuro bass, but also something that can be pads. It can be keys. It can be percussion. It can be, crazy bass stabs. It can be so much more. And unfortunately, I hadn't really found out a way that I even want to do this, because of the way that I have things set up with the chains and all that. And I'll talk more about that. But this is pretty much the highlight of this brand new pack, and I'm very proud of it, because I'm still continuing to develop creative uses for phase plant in a way that serves my needs. So what this does is, on the Akrabumuelu pack, forgive me, some of these are creature names that I just looked up, and if I'm totally butchering this, I think this is like a Aztec creature or something. But yeah, so everything is going to sound like it's in key. So as you can hear, anytime that I strike a note, there's a bunch of randomizations that are already happening. So what's really interesting about this is that I can variate this and find something on the same key to get infinite possibilities, even if I'm playing the same key. Good morning, 6 a.m. here. Perfect time to stream and coffee, and I don't even have Faceplant yet. Well, if this doesn't sell you on Faceplant, then I don't know what will, to be honest. So right now we have the entire register that will work, because what I'm doing instead of using just a neurobase is I'm having an envelope that is randomizing the release of the initial sound. And then there's a bunch of other things that have more envelopes too, and you will see that there's just a ton of modulation on here. Don't let it scare you. But check this out. If I'm going to play a low bass, we can get some really subtle tones if I want to play a higher register. And this is without the macros, but check this out. Sometimes I'm going to get a pluck, sometimes I'm going to get a pad. Hey Scott, what's up? So once we start turning on all the knobs, that's where things get really fun. The mecha knob is kind of the same between all of these. It's where we start activating an aspect of this, which is we're randomizing the harmonic here. So it's from the first FM source, but if we go back down to this register here, we're going to start to get a lot more metallic sounds. You see how much more gritty that became? Now when we added in our distortions, then we're starting to get some really nice sounds, and that's not even at full. Nice. So we can also, I don't have this mapped to a macro. I suppose I could have done that here, but it's fine, because you can just do it here as well. But you can also change this to a different source. So now we can add in our filters. Oh man, this is such a cool patch. So we can add in our delays now. We can also soften this if we want this to actually get into more playable instruments on top. So what I can do is I am going to back off of these guys, and the whole thing about this is not just like on or off. Just like how I did with the Eternum series, you do kind of want to get in and try to just mix and match and see what you can get with subtlety, because the distortion in particular will make a big difference. Sometimes the filtering and the delays will make a big difference. But let's kind of back off. I'll keep some of the distortion on, and now the soften rack is going to make everything a little bit easier to listen to, or a little bit, well, shit, softer. So. Now let's see what happens if we back off of everything else in its entirety. Just a little bit more distortion. And you see how sometimes, again, we're getting plucks, sometimes we're getting long attacks that turn into a pad. And so this is a great time to remind you all that when you're playing with this, like for one, just have a good time with it. But two, having a rolling sampler on here is a really good idea, because that way you can just pull stuff out of this. And I'm not saying that you have to have a rolling sampler. You can just literally make a new track like this, go to Faceplant, and then go to Faceplant Post, or yeah, Faceplant Post, hit record. Make sure that you turn off monitoring, and then you can just record out. So you don't have to have that. It's just more convenient if you do that. So, excuse me, with this though, we've gotten some really nice soft sounds now. So now let's go ahead and see what happens when we turn on the pluck rack. And now we're going to get percussion. So, and we can introduce all of the other sounds as well to variate how much different percussion we have. So I want to stop right there for just a second because I want to talk about how I actually use this, and this is where we're going to get into talking about the track. But even though I'm not getting quote unquote kicks and snares, if I can find stuff in here that's reminiscent of a kick and snare, then I can turn it into one. So for example, that's a kick. And let's find something that's kind of like a snare. So we can probably use something like this. Maybe, yeah, we can do that as like a stick hit. And maybe even just make it shorter, and then we can put a transient shaper on it or something and transform this into something that would be more reminiscent of a snare. And so if you're familiar with processing, then you can actually build a whole entire drum kit out of it, like I've done here. So if we take a look at these sounds, you'll see that this says BB20 whatever, and that's because I've pulled these kicks and snares, most of them. There is one exception. I did do a clap, a very intentional clap here from scratch, but everything else for the most part has been from pulling from a patch like this. So I have done, let me see here, a minimal amount of processing, means prasprum. Let me find out where it is. As you can see, this is all percussion that I've bounced out from before. And where is this kick? Saturn 2. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that I took this guy, which doesn't sound anything amazing on its own. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the kick. And so if I were to highlight all of this and turn it off, then we get this. Now with this, this again, it's going to sound quiet because of the there we go. Let's try that again because that's not all that exciting. But if we go here, trying to break this automation chain. All right, hold on. Sorry guys, 1 second. I already have automation on this, and so it's going to sound quiet. Okay, so on its own, it's going to sound like this. And take this and turn it on. And you know, so if you have the wherewithal for processing and stuff, then you can transform these tiny little hits and blips into drum stuff. And I've done that with a kick and snare, obviously. And so, you know, just as a means of, here is a example about how I have taken a lot of these elements and pulled them out. This is what this tune sounds like. This isn't 100%, it is 100% phase plant, but it's not 100% of that particular patch. But as a means of that first section, that was all just one patch. So from that, I'm able to create quite a large, like, I don't know, like sound palette, if you will. Scott's here, give me 1 second. So I'm doing a demo right now. If you want me to come back on Discord or chat later about that, I'll answer your question, okay? But I'm trying to like keep this focused. So from that, right, like you have so much at your disposal. And so if you wanted to, even, you can even make impacts with this as well. So if I turn the soft and the percussion on, then you can make impacts. And like, don't be afraid to go in here and turn off stuff. So like if the delay isn't working for you, but you still want the impact of then you can easily adjust that or adjust the reverb, and now you've got your impacts. This patch has pretty much everything in it. So if I turn this off and play a higher register, sometimes it'll be a pluck, sometimes it'll be a pad. And then again, if I want it to be a bass, we just pull off of that and so the other thing is on the last macro here, and they're not all the same, but on some of these macros, I have Reese versus, I think just like distortion or something like that, or impact. This will actually pull everything up and transition this into a Reese, so that way you can still have the classic sound that you all know me for, which is the sustained sounds. So. And yeah, that's all on one patch. So I've got 45 patches total. They're not all this. I've got some that are a little bit more consistent. I've got some stuff that does not have a ton of macros, but you know, there's about 45 patches to kind of jump through here. I've also included a couple of templates. So within this, if you take a look at the Neuro Bass Maker, this is the classic, also included within, also included within Eternum 6. So this is how, you know, I build stuff if you still want to make something like that. And I think that this is important because what I'm making now came from this, and I do have a couple of patches that are still kind of like that. So I am not really sure. So Dino Turkey would be one of those. This is something, just a couple of patches that I made after Eternum 6 was released. But I think that it sounds really good. So. So, you know, there's a couple of those. There's also some other stuff in here that's just random things that I'm working on, or new concepts, actually, I would want to say. So I will warn you with some of these patches, this one seems to be okay. There might be a little bit CPU heavy with the bias too. But with these patches, with the bias ones, this is actually how you can make bipolar waveforms, which I've already made a tutorial about. But what's really cool about this is that if you look, you'll see that one side of the bias is, excuse me, one side of the bias is over to the right, and then the other side of the bias is over to the left. And these are being sent into parallel chains that lets us have basically parallel, or sorry, not parallel, but bipolar waveform processing on this. So there's no macros with this, but take a listen, because one side of the waveform is a saw wave and the other side of the waveform is a square wave. And so you get this crazy odd stereo stuff that happens on this. And so with the talking, or like the vocalness of this, there's some really crazy like timbres that you can create just by doing things this way. So again, this is a concept, and then I think that there's another concept that I have in here. I don't remember what it is in particular, but yeah, it's pretty neat. So there's also some other things that I've included as well, like the C generator from the last video that I did on how to get infinite things. This is not designed to be like the end all be all, but what it is designed to do is to help you figure out how to trace what it is that I've done for these new patches or these new presets. And so what this does is if I were to just hit C, to various degrees, then we're going to get random notes that are all within C. So of all those C's that I've played, I can bounce those out and cut them, and then what I can do, because I've already made a pack like this and included it for the Discord members, is excuse me, hey Fable, I've made this thing called Granular Food, and so now between all of these you can just bounce out all of these C's and use this for a relatively infinite amount of different instruments that you can play. So we can turn this off, or rather let me just go ahead and create a new one. And it's really neat because within this, once you pull this up, like, and you can make as many of these as you want to, but the reason why I made it in C is so that way you don't have to tune it. So you can play whatever you want, but that's why I made it in C. So that way, or that's why I like labeled it as C, because that way it's going to match your keyboard. So yeah, you can technically play whatever you want, just make sure that you map it. But I think that for an educational purpose, that's the easiest reason to do that. I see what you did there. And I'm like, all right, if I want a different synth, now I can just pull this up. And so if we were to do just a little bit of, yeah, let's just do some overdrive and some reverb. Maybe even some filtering. And then maybe what we can do is something kind of like this. We can also change this if we want to make this into chords and stuff, but you see how I'm already off to making like a completely different patch just off of those bounces. And that's why I don't really, that's why I haven't really done a lot of granular stuff, because I think that it's a lot cooler to figure out how to get to the granular as opposed to here's just a granular patch, right? I think that it's like really easy, and I feel like it was a personal trap for me because I found myself doing it, of just being like, map the position, map the timing, map the pitch, map the reverse. And all of those are great choices to have like a lot of diversity between a granular synth, but I feel like most people that would be getting this pack already know how to do that. And so if you go back and you backtrack to that C generator, excuse me, then you can use that as a means to get a wider variety of different synthesized sources in which to start to add to stuff like this. But it still applies, you know, because once you have the granular engine, thanks to Faceplant, then there are relatively infinite amount of things that you can do. So you can make some really pretty stuff with that. And then, so coming back to this, you start here, you can variate the wavetables, or, you know, again, use the wavetables that I've included in the Requiem pack, which I believe there's like 20 something, I want to say like 22 or so. But you can just pick something completely different and take your pick, throw all those into your granular synth, and then have a good day. So there's also some things that are in here. You'll see Coelacanth Perk. This is actually just a copy of that, so you won't find that in the pack. So there's my folder is going to look slightly different than the one that I'm including. But I do have some other conceptual things that I think are pretty nice too. So something like this can be kind of nice, because if we were to just play this, then you'll see that it's going to be making multiple sounds for arpeggiators and like pseudo sequencing. Let me turn this down a bit. I didn't realize that was so loud. But let's go ahead and turn this off. This was what right now, this is, I'll show you what this is. This is super cool. So okay, so within this, what this does is it will create a sequence for you, and this is all mapped to a minor scale. That's why it's called minor art. But something that's really cool about this is that I have this thing, Let's Rock. It's a cameo, if you will, or nod to Marvel vs. Capcom 2, the Hulk. Whenever he hops in, he's like, "Let's rock." So I don't know, it's just something stupid. But what this does is it will modulate the speed of the ARP, so that way some things will play faster and slower, and you're going to get some really interesting polyrhythms like this. So I think this is it's a badass preset, you know, and you can always, again, change the sounds out, but just as a means of how this is designed, I think that it's super cool. It's relatively simple as far as timbre goes, but as a means of getting some really interesting sounds, there's that. So this is kind of an intro to the new way of how I've been doing basses that will kind of help you backtrack things. You know, I was talking about doing randoms and this and that or whatever. But with this is kind of an introduction to like the processing that I've been doing on quote unquote my types of neurobasses, which shout out to Zane, because Zane kind of put me onto this thing. We like went on this whole rabbit hole of doing like Doom compressor style sounds and whatnot. And I have grown so much in my basses from talking to Zane Wolf. So if he catches or stumbles upon this, thank you, bro. So with this, you'll see that there's just one knob on here. Again, this is a paper trail to help you figure out how to get all this stuff working, but this is probably going to be loud. Let me turn this down. Yep. So you can see that every time I hit a key, it's going to do something different. And then when we add the variation, you'll see that the randomization of the harmonic is going to change. So the initial timbre is going to, well, be a lot more metallic. But if we were to take this and you were to actually take a look at some of these other things that I've done, so let's say like we pull up Obsolescence, you'll see that when the metal rack is turned on, this is the kind of like, this is the key to how I'm creating these sounds. So, right, because it's kind of normal, but then when we turn the metal on, now we add the distortion. So you can see how, again, like it's like half the patch, so it teaches you like how to use excuse me, how to how to do stuff like that. So let me see. There was some other stuff in here that I thought was pretty cool too. And then also this all-in-one maker is just a general guide to how to set up, how to set these patches up. So this kind of gives you the clues of what I've done, because if you just take a look at this, we're still getting all those other sounds, right? So, and then when we turn on this macro, then you'll see how we're getting more variation through that. So sick, and even on my headphones, need to hear this on my speakers. Yeah, this will be public, so there's that. I think bruh is just another one of those like Eternum style basses. So so yeah, when we turn on the generator, it sounds like this. So there's that kind of like a hollow sound, if you will, and then we can use this to make an impact if you want. So yeah, that's the bruh. Kronos is another one. So we've got kind of the same layout of distortion, filters, metallic, reverb, the percussive maker, the smooth, soften, and chaos, which is going to move all of these together. So I tried to like not do the same thing on every single one. So the concept behind some of these kind of, as you can tell, there's a lot of potential behind these patches as a whole, and there's a lot of different things that you can try to map them to make them all kind of like talk to themselves and whatnot. Hey honey. So with that, for this one in particular, this chaos thing is basically making all of these move at random, so we're getting a completely random sound whenever we turn this on. But we'll come back to that in a second. So this one, is that a pastry? Yeah, I'll try one maybe later. I'll come talk to you in a bit, okay? I'm gonna finish up with this. So yeah, we'll turn the filters on, and then we can kind of turn on the other knobs as well, and just again go through how many different sounds we can get just out of a single patch. So basically, and like I said, if we bring this up a few octaves, maybe back off of the metal, back off of the distortion, turn on the verb. Let's go ahead and turn the soften on. If we turn on the smooth knob, this is going to make everything go smooth. So we're going to get a vastly different kind of sound. And then again, if we pull all of this stuff off and we turn on the percussion, then this is going to give us basically percussive sounds. So now what I did do on these packs is I actually did include these. And so what you can do is you can take these racks and put them on just about anything in order to get percussion. You just need to send an impulse through it. I do think that it's going to work best with stuff that's designed like this because everything is going to be random. But if you already have, say, you know, stuff that you're making that's generative, or you already have like some of the Eternum series, then you can just add this as another macro to your rack, and that will help you start to create different kinds of percussion, which I think is a lot of fun and really sick. Like I said before, there are some things in here that are very simple, if you will. So who was it that was asking about? So Scottsker was actually asking about like a noise like neurobase, and this is actually included in here because it's kind of just a, you know, it's an 808, but it's very easy to, again, kind of retrace about how I do this because, you know, it's usable. And that's kind of one of the things that I struggle with trying to make for people that choose to buy my presets is like, how can I make something that's not only usable, but also something that is going to continue to be inspiring? And so there's a little bit of both of that in here. So that way it's not just completely foreign and people are like, I have no idea how to use this. I will say, like, you know, please watch this demo and look at all the sounds that I have to offer before you make a decision, because I want you to be happy with it. I also don't do refunds because it's a digital product and, you know, just full % transparency. But yeah, so. So there's that. There's a couple of other ones on here. The Comprehensive Guide to Neurobase 5. This one is really interesting. There's a couple of cool racks included on this that you can use. There's the bipolar aspect to this, but what I've done is I've actually provided another rack on here that is kind of in steps. And what this is a granular resampler. And I think that I've also made this bipolar. So what I've done was I took the impulser, I took the sounds that were coming out of the positive and the negative sides of the waveform, just as a whole, and then I made a bunch of sounds, and then I bounced it out, and then I took that and threw that back in here on the same patch for granular stuff. And you can kind of change this and make it jump around, and it will pretty much give you just a wild set of stuff. So have fun pushing, you know, your favorite bass note a bunch of times and see what you get, and then pull this off and go back to this and see how you can get some interesting results and maybe even map some of these. So again, this stuff is kind of in concept, so that's why I didn't necessarily go like super ham and like map it all out. But even still, it's kind of cool to see like what I'm doing. I also have videos on this for the master classes on how I on how like I got to this point of where I am. Desolation, I made a video about this not too long ago about this Lorne inspired pad, which is really cool. For this in particular, I messed this up, but this distortion, like these two need to not be on at the same time, so they'll essentially cancel each other out because it'll get crazy. But if we were to kind of mess with this, let me just turn this off, then it sounds like this. Which obviously it's very quiet, but it's very quiet for a reason. But once we start to add some distortion, we've got two different distortion racks on here, so Desolation 1 and Desolation 2, and so you can kind of also use this to kind of mix and match in between. So yeah, it's very distorted, but it's still pretty cool. So we've also got Endless Thoughts, which is kind of cool. This, I think, is a completely different approach to what it was that I'm talking about. I think that this was mostly designed for like pads and plucks and stuff, but check this out. Let me turn this down a bit. There's so much cool stuff in here. So, as you can see, this patch was meant to be, I think, just something that was still random and still had sequences and stuff, but was constantly changing over time. And I think that's what the goal of this was, now that I'm looking back on this patch. And so it kind of takes some of the inspiration behind what I've been making with the other patches, as far as the one that can do like everything. And then it was like, all right, now let's just apply this to something that's like meant to be played as keys or pads. So that's pretty nice. Fear Factory is kind of another one of these. I'm going to skip over these because I want it to be a surprise to you. This is a very simple bass, but what is really cool about this is there's this song called Fogged in Breaks from Jairus Miller. Let me see if I can find, yeah, I have it. So I really just wanted to recreate this sound, and hold on, let me just find like one specific part of this. So I just wanted to make that sound, which I was like, can I do it? And I just wanted to, like, I don't know, I thought that was kind of cool because it kind of has that cool, like, almost metallic sound to it on the top end. How you can import wavetables into Faceplant so you don't have to read the manual. So you go wavetable, open this up, and then go to the bottom where it says add location. And then I've got a manual, or not a manual, but I have like instructions on how to like install these, or install all the patches, because there's the Faceplant patches, multipass, snap heap, and then the wavetables. So you just need to, what I would do is just pull them to your user presets if you want. That way you don't have to you don't have to redirect it to a separate entity. You can also go into your folder here. So if I go here, I've got this kilohertz folder, and you won't find this most likely. So if you go to go, and you can't see this, but you hold Option, if you're on a Mac, it'll pull up your user library. And this has to be your secret library. It can't be the regular one. So you go to Audio, Presets, Kilohertz, and then you'll see this ungodly amount of well over 1,000 presets that I have. So yeah. So yeah, that was just a cute little challenge. This is Funky 808s. It's just kind of some keys that I thought were nice. I think I used this in a tune. I don't remember what it was though. Oh, it's a lead, sorry. Not that special, but still kind of cool. Fat Saw. Gibdo, this is some just random stuff, which I think is kind of interesting. So with this, it was meant to be a bass that is just kind of all over the place, and you can change the curve to your liking to make it do a bunch of different stuff, or you can set this up to be consistent. So most of them are polyphony. Yeah, most of them are polyphony. But with this, don't touch this knob. That's why it's called utility. I just thought that this was a really cool kind of like bass that you can use to kind of charge up and do different stuff too. So if we turn the random movement on, you're gonna see that it's gonna jump around here. And we can also change this to different windows as well. So yeah, Growing Pains, this was actually the first preset that I made for this pack, which was another kind of you know, Eternum style bass. And like I said, I'm still going to include these in future packs. I'm just not going to do like 50 of them because I don't think I have so many Eternum racks now that I think that, you know, I think that for all intents and purposes, like that should be way more. There should be way more than enough to play with. But it sounds like this. You might have to mess with some of these with like the volume and stuff. I might have been working on this late at night, but you know, that's what it is, what it is. Yeah, some of those growling sounds, man, are just super cool. This is a very basic heavy reese. It works really well, though. So if you just want a quick, you know, drum and bass reese, works really well. This hyper womp is like a one-stop shop. It only does one thing, but it is really cool because, well, it womps. So you might want to put some OTT on this at the end, but even still, I just thought this was another cool thing because it just has that really cool low and rumbly sound. So we could probably just grab this and yeah, that's pretty neat. Let's see. We went through this one. I don't even know. This is just yeah, we talked about this one too. Jug Thug. This is a cool, like, physical kind of bellish type sound. I just like it because it's very physical. Let's see what else we got. Kerplonka Clonk. So this is a indicator about how I make and this isn't the first time that I've released this, but this is an indicator about how I make percussive sounds. So this is going wild, but once I hit something and if I just hold down a button, it's going to continue to make different stuff. So what could be cool is you might even want to throw something like one of those snap heap racks on here. So if we pull up the Requiem snap heap theme and we put on the, I don't know, Robu percussion, and we turn this on, then maybe this will give us some extra, you know, percussive sounds that will give us more variation. Yeah, like that. I'm actually going to pull that out because I could probably use that in this patch. I don't remember where that was, but there was a tambourine in here that sounded great. So, you know, I'm kind of curious or compelled to go find it, but hold on, I got to move this to the other side. Yeah, check it out. You can kind of just fade this in and maybe high pass this, but that, to me, that sounds like a pretty realistic tambourine. So best believe I'll be tossing that in and using that within this, you know, patch or something. So I could even, if I wanted to, actually, I can just kind of show you. See, I love when stuff works out like this because I'm not going to start producing on this track again right now because I don't want to mess with it, but I can go even just on the kick on the 1 or something. So and maybe I'll do some other processing to it or whatever, but I can just put that on the downbeat of each of these, and now or I could do something kind of like this and just high pass it, because I don't really like the lower mid physical stuff that's in it, but it has a really nice splash sound. So there we go. I found a cool tambourine that we can use, and that's a direct use case for, you know, putting that back in the patch and being like, or sorry, putting it back in the song and being like, hey, it works. So there's that. Low bow, low bass. It's a very simple Reese, but it kind of goes to show like how little you have to do. So normally, if you all see what I'm doing with my neurobasses and stuff, you'll notice that I'm doing like crazy EQ stuff. But with 3 filters, I think 4 filters actually, because there's another one on here. I'm not sure what that one's doing. Yeah. Oh, that's just taking out the low mids. So even if we were to turn that off, so with 3 filters. Okay, fine, 4, because we're notching that out. We might want to boost the high end of that just a bit. And get some pretty cool sounds out of that. Add some Eternum racks to that. You can get some cool stuff. This is a metallic maker, so gonna bounce. Still to mess with this later. Thank you and have a good night. Yeah, thanks so much for checking out this. I really appreciate it. So this will create just some metal stuff for you, like stings. I turned this down by quite a bit because it can get pretty loud. But I do like this because it's just kind of a nice effect. It's got a little shimmer on it. Nice sub Reese. So if I'm pretty sure that I'm using something just like this on the track that we were just, or on this track that we were listening to, but there's that. Nixie is another one of these, so if we move the donk versus Reese over to the left, turn on the vibes, back off of the distortion in the middle, and play the higher register. Turn off the filters. Get a different, you know, same chord, but different sound every time. So, yeah, it's cool, man. I really like what I've done with this pack, and I think that there's just a bunch of really interesting sounds to get into. And I know that some of these are simple and whatnot, but it is kind of an indicator about what I'm doing these days and how I'm getting all different kinds of stuff. But perhaps the most important thing of all of this is the 808 funk cowbell that I've provided. So all of you people wanting to make your funk genres, I have done you the biggest favor that you could possibly never ask for. It's memes, guys. Don't worry about it. There is one more thing that I definitely want to show you, and I know that I haven't covered all of these patches, but we did talk about the major ones. But I'll leave you all with this. This is a Techno donk, and I really wanted to make something that was kind of like just a hard-hitting like bass stab, like do-dum, da-da-dum, dum, da-da-dum, dum. And I created that, so. Which is really cool, and then we can add a fifth to it. We added a cool little delay dub as well, but you know, you add a 4/4 beat to that. I don't know. Again, I just wanted to create different stuff that is not all just the same thing. But as you can tell, there's a huge variety of sounds in here, even though the preset span is not as like large. And it's also the first of the new series of Requiem. I don't know if I'm going to continue to do Requiem in the future, but I definitely wanted to showcase these new patches that I've been creating that I think just provide a ton of value. Like even just one, even if you were to just open up Coelacanth and get a bunch of stuff from this, like there's so much to be pulled from that. One thing that I will also say is that this pack is cheaper than the Eternum series, and it's not because I was worried about charging too much or anything of the sort. There's two reasons that I just want to be transparent about. For one, this pack did not take me as long to make, even though it was a lot of work and a lot of R&D. Just as a sheer means of putting stuff together, it wasn't as difficult as coming up with essentially 3 times the amount of patches as the Eternum series, right? Because the Eternum series, you've got the main patch, you've got the multipass rack, and then you've got the snap heap rack. So I'm essentially having to design 3 times as many and then make sure that they all work together. And that was, you know, it's super cool, and I'm glad that I did it. But yeah, it's just not as much work. And then because of that, because I'm not having like a bunch of racks within these patches for the most part, except for the percussive makers, there technically isn't as much customization, but the trade-off is that you actually have more variety of sound. So it's like, I don't know where to sit on that. And maybe there's a happy medium to where I can like combine all of these production tricks into a single patch. And I know that it's possible because, you know, Faceplanet can do anything. But I also think that because I decided to go for that, that for the most part, these patches are not as CPU intensive, ironically. You will see that my CPU is kind of doing this, but you also have to realize that we've got a full produced, like, not, I'd say it's not done, but like, you know what I mean? I've got a full track on here that this is playing over. And I guess if anybody's wondering, I'm on an M1 Max, so I do have a beefy CPU, but even still, this runs no problem. The thing that will bog your CPU down perhaps are the biased ones, because those have a bunch of racks on them, but you can just turn them off, and it's more about a concept than actually like making the cool sound or whatever. So yeah, does anybody have any questions about any of the sounds or any of the things that I've made here? Yeah, I'm very proud of this. I put a lot of work into this, and obviously like I've been doing sound design for over 10 years now, and I think that I guess I feel fortunate because I continue to come up with unique stuff that is more and more my own sound signature, and also things that like you're not really getting anything else like this on the market. And I'm not saying that it can't be done. I'm just saying that, you know, I'm just doing my thing, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm glad that I've been able to kind of pioneer these kinds of patches and showcase them not only as a concept and, you know, hopefully spread this concept to help people improve their sound design, but also like use it for my own music, you know? That's the whole point of sound design for me. As much as I love to, you know, make stuff and do cool noises and stuff, it's always a means to an end to get to the music. And the more that I can put into a single patch that's going to give me all of my needs, or even, a high percentage, 70% of my needs, right? Because maybe there's like 3 sounds in here that I did not design from, the coelacanth patch. Or actually, I'm not even sure what did I use? Because it's in here. I'm not sure which one it was. Hold on, let me find it. That's a saw wave. That's also a saw wave. Very basic waveforms, I know. Might be this one. I think it's this one. So I use Fear Factory. So for the most part, this entire tune, or a large majority of this tune, was made with Fear Factory. So you know what I'm saying? Like, that's super cool. And like that the kicks and the snares and the vibe of this tune came from that. Like, yeah, I did some post-processing or whatever, of course, but as far as getting the percussion down and stuff, you know what I mean? Like, these are some of the biggest drums I've ever made. And then, that little like that little bass hit or whatever came from this too. So if we were to turn off the musical and the percolate and then just get into... So, we just take a little bit of that and then post that in and use that as our, bass hit or whatever. Obviously clean it up, do some mixing to it, but you know what I mean? Like, there it is. This sound is from the same thing. Obviously I just kind of cut the last bit and repeated that, but yeah, I mean, what can you say? Like, I'm using a single patch to create a huge portion of this track, and that's why I am very proud of this, because if you'll know, I like to do a lot of sound design before I start producing in the first place. And so if I can put a bunch of effort into these patches like that, then it kind of just kickstarts, having stuff that seems inspiring. You just start pulling stuff out and being like, all right, what can I do with that? And even if you can't make kicks and snares like this or whatever, you can take off all the presets, all of the processing, and reserve the processing and just find stuff that kind of sounds like a kick and snare. So let me see what this is. So like, I think I already used this actually, but excuse me. This is like, you could use this as a clap or a stick hit or something. Yeah, exactly. The patches can pretty much drive the entire track, and you're never going to get the same thing twice. That is what I absolutely adore about my patches. No matter what, you're never going to get the same thing twice, and that's both a good and, obviously there's some bad things to it. But if you have rolling sampler, or you're constantly recording, then you don't miss out. And I think that's the one caveat that might turn people away from these kinds of packs, is that they're not immediately usable. You have to have a little bit of, you kind of have to have a little bit of wherewithal in order to use these as effective as possible. But I said that in the description. I've also said that quite a few times within the live stream today. But yeah, I don't know. I just want people to be happy, and I want them to be inspired with what it is that I'm making. I'm definitely going to be sending this to Kolya, because I know that people like him have taken my stuff in the past and just like went off with it. And so I'm really curious to see what they can do. So if anybody is inspired by this, if anybody, likes these kinds of sounds and you all pick this up, just know, like, thank you. Most importantly, thank you so much. I've already had a couple of people buy this and be like, this is a really cool thing. And thank you so much. I'm not trying to get rich off of these. I'm just trying to support myself and, have food to put on the table for Corey and I. And that's really what it is. But yeah, I'm open to feedback. So if there's something that you would like to see in the future, or if anybody has any questions about things, I'm usually pretty good about tech support, because I don't sleep very much. But I hope that you all really just enjoy this pack, man. It's really cool. Does anybody have any questions about this before I go? I wanted to keep this relatively like a short stream, but I still just wanted to relay, like, hey, here's what we're working with. I don't think anybody has any questions. So yeah, Eternum, or sorry, Requiem is available at alchemy.com. It's $30 US dollars, and I don't even make that much because what's it called? PayPal takes a percentage of that, so I'm actually making like $28 off of this, give or take. So it's relatively cheap, and but I think in turn it's a kick-ass pack, and so I hope that you all love it. I know that kilohertz is expensive, and I realize that, and so I don't want to just, you know, clean people out of their money for things that already cost a lot. But this pack is super inspiring to me. I'm going to continue making patches like this, continue probably making packs like this, depending on if this does well or not. And yeah, at the end of the day, I just hope that you love it. That's really what matters to me. So in any case, thank you all so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Oh, by the way, Dima Disc came in and sent me a message, which was so cool. They said, hey, good job on the last track that we did with the techno thing. So I'm leaving that public if y'all want to check it out. It's a major bite off of their tune Casino. But shout out to Dima Disc, man. That was so cool of you guys to just come in. Like, how did you find me? That's insane. But yeah, all right, I'll let you guys go. Much love. Thank you so much, everybody. And please enjoy the pack, or I don't know, learn what you can from the stream if you want to make it yourself, because I know that that's what some people are into doing. Bye, everybody.